Welcome to the whole mess principle. Got a new moon cycle, which began with the Sagittarius full moon on May 31st. This one was amazing. I was headed back from a trip to Corpus Christi. On the drive back, I had Venus and Jupiter to my left and the full moon to my right. And everything was just nice. And for days after, I felt a sensation in my body that I've never felt before, or that I have felt to some degree. I still do not know what it is. It's like my soul is stretching. Within the limited container of my body, my soul is stretching in some kind of infinite way. And the feeling is still somewhat there, but I knew that it would fade with the full moon. Let's talk about the fact that this is a mutable cycle, and Sagittarius is a mutable sign. We've got the Sagittarius full moon, the Pisces quarter moon, and then the Gemini new moon will happen. And then we'll be into cardinal territory, which in modality language, that's the beginning of a new modality cycle. Cardinal kicks things off. Cardinal fixed mutable, sorry. Cardinal fixed mutable. That is the modality cycle. And I wrote a quote for this cycle. In order to love yourself, you must behave in ways that you admire. Emphasis on what you admire. Part of not being a whole person is not knowing the difference between what you admire and what is admired by people around you, people you grew up with, your friends, your culture. You have not separated from the herd. My entire channel, this whole thing, is about not just the individual separation from the herd, but the herd's transformation itself as each individual flips around. That is my whole Sagittarius thing. I have reversed the direction of the arrow for the symbol of Sagittarius. Even though I can't literally change the constellation in the sky, Sagittarius has its arrow pointed at the scorpion of Scorpio, which is behind Sagittarius. Behind, the archer is aiming at a target which is behind itself, at its former self, okay? And this is akin to us beating ourselves up for our pasts, or shaming ourselves, shaming others, all metaphorically, of course. This is all my little philosophical story, which Sagittarius is the philosopher. It is the sign associated with Jupiter, which is higher education and expansion, and also the first transpersonal planet, the first planet beyond Mars. So we have an asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, which is kept from being just random rocks in the universe that pelt Earth by the orbit of Jupiter. So Jupiter is considered king partially because he literally saves Earth from being pelted by all these asteroids. through the largesse of his mass, his gravitational field pulls in all of those objects. We have that asteroid belt, and then there are like trans-Neptunian objects. Neptune, never mind, I don't know very much about that, but Sagittarius is the sign of philosophy, and having some kind of basic framework to operate within philosophically. And we do tend to live more as Scorpions if we don't have some semblance of a philosophical framework. So to some extent, Sagittarius, our philosophies have had to aim themselves at that which has come previous. And there has been more of a war between the present and the future and the past. In fact, Jesus declared that that's what he was doing. Jesus reversed the arrow of time. Okay? That's one of my favorite, like when it comes to religions or just choosing a spiritual framework or philosophy, belief, whatever you want to call it. One of my favorite things to land back on is a Louis C.K. bit. And he's talking about how Jesus won. Like, he split time in half. He made time go from negative numbers to positive numbers. And of course, Louis C.K. does it way funnier. I'm going to try to link it for you. Jesus won, okay? Because Jesus represents the one, the universal consciousness which we all share. And you can take that metaphorically or you can use it literally. And I am actually becoming more and more literal all the time because the real is the symbolic having risen to form, having become reified, made real. And then that reality echoes through eternity in cycles. Very beautifully displayed by our stars and planets, which I consider to be the literal forms of divine intelligence. You can see this, you can track this in your own life and become frighteningly intimate with God. You can do whatever you want with it. Belief is belief for a reason. It is not fact. So part of getting away from the past is simply turning your back on things that came before which were damaging. So that's one of them. People having beliefs and forcing them on others because they have taken their belief to be fact. And though our beliefs operate as facts in our lives, as astrology does in mine, and Christ and Venus, we do live in a free will universe where no one has any real power over any other person. So before we can even deal in authentic power over ourselves, we have to become whole. And before that, We are dealing in these lesser powers of the human ego, of half-baked ideology, and infinitely messier things. There is so much right now that's just like, reverse the arrow of time in your life, okay? If you're caught looking backward. I just read a quote because I had to look this guy up, 𝘵𝘰𝘯𝘯𝘯𝘭, that did this quote, because I was like, I mean, anybody could have written that quote. That's basically what I believe and what I've always talked about when it comes to love. You have to admire something in another person to love them, and you have to admire something in yourself to aspire to something higher and to lift yourself out of whatever you don't like about yourself. Anyway, I had to look him up, and he has a bunch of great quotes. 𝘵𝘰𝘯𝘯𝘯𝘭. And one of them was, eventually she had to give up on the hope of having a better past. Like, we have our arrow facing the past, as though we can change something in the past. I mean, other people do. I don't think I have never had my arrow facing that direction. That is kind of a core difference between feminine and masculine as well, because I've noticed, like, one of my big difficulties in love is that men are always looking backwards. They are pining for first loves. They are trying to find something like a simpler being to fall in love with than a woman, which is only becoming more and more and more and more and more complex. Which flies right in the face of love, because love has to do with admiration and looking up and becoming more complex and mutating, transmuting. Mystery. It is ultimately the mystery and the space in front of us that we step into with faith. This is why faith is so important, and faith is a word for Sagittarius and Jupiter. Higher powers, higher order, higher love. You have to have faith to step into that. And when you do, those nets appear. It demonstrates itself to you. It proves itself to you. You can't prove it to other people, but it will prove itself to you. And even those people, okay, I went to Corpus Christi. This is where Selena lived and died. And I am massively connecting with her in a way I never thought. I went to her museum because my friend wanted to go, and I did not expect to be the one coming away listening to all of her music and really connecting with something there. But she is one of those people who followed that starlight in herself with a lot of encouragement and even potentially negative family stuff. Same with Michael Jackson. This is a big story right now, is kind of the toxicity of a culture which has harnessed this starlight in us and thrown us onto stages and resulted in all of this Hollywood whatever stuff is happening right now with negative powers using this starlight in us. If you ask me, Selena probably got saved from a future that was not as bright as she imagined it would be. And it was the jealousy of another who could not recognize that same starlight in herself. Like the president or the creator of Selena's fan club is the one who murdered her. This would be the Scorpions. This would be like even Selena fighting for her own life in the hotel room with the president of her fan club would be that Sagittarian arrow aimed at the negative, the past, this idea that there are only a few stars in the sky. We have proven scientifically there are, there are so many stars. There are so many ways to be alive. There are so many ways to shine your light. Nobody ever has to be jealous of any other person. We are radically unique. Anyway, I feel like I've somehow gotten off track. Basically, the idea that we are stars and star stuff, and that our lives are not compelled by astrology or the stars or the planets. There's a popular phrase, the stars incline, they do not compel. They give you a framework to witness your own evolution and to have it mirrored back to you. And if you see them as living intelligence, think of the living waters, the living Bible. God is alive. Do you not think that will be represented by something we can measure or track? And to me, that thing is this starlight, this silver stuff. I'm just like fascia in the body is this stuff. Doctors have literally viewed it as stuffing and just torn it out like it was nothing, when it holds our whole mutability, our body's mutability, flexibility, and all of our organs. Everything is held in place by this silver stuff. And the word fascia is similar to fascist, and that has entered my mind big time as like just contemplating fate versus free will. Because yeah, the stars incline, don't compel. But what if in not following the stars, we are actually failing this fascist destiny that calls to us, like that already exists, not as a written future that we just have to follow blindly, but somehow mystically already exists, and in that way is deterministic. Everything ends up feeling like a joke because everything ends up revealing itself as paradox. It's like, sure, you have free will to suck if you'd really like to be a scorpion instead of an eagle and a phoenix, and then a half horse, half human archer, and then a half mermaid, half goat. Like, if your imagination is so pitiful that, and you have no humor and no, like, having free will is having none of those things, none of those awesome things in the common argument. It's like, so people are arguing literally to have their free will to suck, and then to be compelled by the stars to let them grab you, to let them enact their fascist policies upon you of making you pristine and perfect. That is determinism. Whatever. Okay. I want to talk about one more thing before I finish this up. In order to love yourself, you have to behave in ways that you admire. And we practice this by behaving in ways that others that we want to like us will admire. I've done this for mostly love objects. I thought if I did this or that some boy would like me more. And every single time, it's only me that's liked me more. And I have increasingly repelled members of the opposite sex. And my personal flipping of the switch, changing the direction of the arrow, is finally giving up on a romantic future. And I'm about to cry saying that, but it's like, hold on. I was about to talk about that. Here's another quote by this person. I don't like pronouncing his name because I don't feel like I'm doing it right. People who feel empty. I'm just going to cover my face because it's been hard to hold back tears for days and days. So this is not just related to the topic, but okay. People who feel empty never heal by merging with another incomplete person. On the contrary, two broken-winged birds. There's a lot to grieve because love is real when we're broken, but it's not ultimately real. And there's a huge gap of understanding here in between the tree of death and the tree of life. We're very attached when we are on the tree of death. And our emotions cannot keep up with what we need to understand a lot of the time. So, there's a lot to cry about, and there's a lot of mourning in between certain chapters. Two broken-winged birds coupled into one make for clumsy flight. No amount of patience will help it fly, and ultimately, each must be pried from the other, and wounds separately splinted. And I don't even know why that's making me cry so much right now, because the only reason I'm at the point that I'm at is that I have finally completely separately splinted. In fact, not having a love object is so foreign to me that all the time now, it is like being a newly healed bird with no idea. Like I can start to fly and I can like kind of skid across a surface, but I still have not really taken flight as a whole self without all of this lesser connuntio, all of these lesser unions that we form. This is Carl Jung's term, lesser connuntio. It is premature, unhealthy union. Rather than true union of equals, it represents ego inflation, regression, or being swallowed by the unconscious before achieving independence. So when we allow unconscious repetitive cycles to take over our life, when we put life itself in the driver's seat instead of taking the driver's seat, then we are being swallowed by unconscious forces. And we will be involved in relationships with unconscious aspects of ourselves, aka scorpions, aka husks and shells of people. And this has a very negative connotation, obviously, but also a very positive connotation. Because while we are in these vehicles, being driven by life, as like we are not the husk or the shell. We are still the life force contained in the vehicle that is being protected by these, even by these unconscious experiences and drives. We are literally created by fire, which is hell by the human definition. By divine definition, hell is ice. It's Pluto. And heaven is in between. In a place called Earth. On a place, in a place. Heaven is a place on Earth. It is a spiritual state in between the life of a husk or a shell, the lesser unions that we form. Before we know there's a heaven. It's in between that unformed state and some fascist, utopian, wonderful future that will not make itself fascist in our lives because we have to choose it. It's like the jokes are written into our bodies, like fascia. Fascia literally holds you together and holds you safely within the net of life, the web of Indra, etc., etc. You can never, ever, ever be harmed. You can only keep consenting to your growth within this network, this matrix of silver string. Just keep saying yes. On the one hand, with the arrows going this way. And if you're saying yes to the good, you don't even have to say no to the bad. The bad just falls behind you. I've definitely said enough here. The main takeaway from even just all of my new moon cycle videos so far is get yourself turned around. And then upside down pentagram, flip it around. The arrow, flip it around. You're in an upside down world. If you are compromising your wholeness just to remain in relationships, in lesser unions with others, you don't have to feel bad, and you're not a bad person for leaving dynamics that do not contribute to your wholeness and to the fulfillment of your soul. Like, you are here being made by God. Your soul is something that God is deeply invested in. And if you don't feel that, it's synchronicity ultimately that begins to show you. I feel like I do have to promote astrology a bit above, and even the living Bible. Christ as an ultimate guiding light, because synchronicity alone is not guiding you out of hellish dynamics. It's not going to lift you out of the brick oven. It's gonna show you ways or illuminate little doorways. It's gonna give you hope as you follow synchronicity, but it can just as easily keep you more invested in these half relationships. It's just like with drugs, like psychedelic drugs. When you get the message, hang up the phone. The message is that it's all inside of you. You are an acorn that contains the code for your entire life. You already know the way. You don't need drugs, gurus, relationships to tell you anything. And no relationship is worth being in that tries to make you less than your potential. And we've got a very, like, this is part of the grief, the leap in understanding of what love is letting go of old ideas of love which cling, which are unconscious, which are the devouring mother, which are distorted forms of caring about others, which swallows their independence We have to be able to set free if we love. End of story. And that is what the divine does, instead of forcing its will upon us. But there is a higher path to follow. We are not responsible for creating our whole future. Selena really believed in creating her own future. And look what happened to her. I'm not saying astrology foretold what she went through. I'm saying she believed she had so much more ahead of her human life than she actually did. Because perhaps she had too much faith in just herself and not the higher power, which channeled through her. Because this was right around the time we were, this was post Pluto in Leo. The passage of Pluto really marks the generations very well. And she was born in 1971. I think she is Pluto in Sagittarius. I need to learn those dates better. Whatever. We've been going through ego training and learning to view the self as a worthy vessel for God's love and power. Not just God's love, but God's power as well. Creative power. So many lives have been lived practicing just the power of the self and figuring out that line between God's will and human will and da 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 da. And that is all exactly as it should be. Because what does the full moon represent? All is perfect. Okay, that's it. Peace out.